You are listening to the 90 Days Later podcast with Anna Charles, episode 181. Welcome to the 90 Days Later podcast, where we talk about what really happens when you take a break from drinking. And it turns out to be the best thing you've ever done. I'm Anna, coach to high achievers who are done waking up with regret and ready to feel in control around alcohol. If you've ever wondered what your life could look like with less wine and more you're in the right place. Hi all, and welcome back to the podcast. All right, so I'm having huge fun at the moment. I am seeing my client roster grow and grow. This is so good. I'm helping more people. More people are stepping forward to say, yes, I want to change my relationship with alcohol. I'm so thrilled. And so many of you, my new lovely clients, I know you have found me on the podcast. So thank you for backing yourself. And to those of you listening and wondering, is this my time? You make that time right when you decide. All right, I thought I'd just start with that. So I'm coming to you this week always as this is being your space to pause, to reflect, and to remind yourself that drinking less is not about depriving yourself. It's actually about, I like to think of it as coming home to who you actually are, right? We find ourselves again. We find the version of you who's clear, who's calm, who's in charge, and who's done with all the old stories that alcohol used to write, right? Those stories that do not fit with the rest of yourself and your life, right? We get to rewrite those stories. Now, today, we're going to be talking about one of the trickiest emotional loops that I find people get caught in. Certainly my clients often tell me this when they start working with me, and maybe you have this too. This is sort of about the whole idea of connection and relationships and so on. What happens when they being, it could be anyone, could be your spouse, your friends, your family, your boss, your colleagues, I don't know, whoever, when they expect you to drink and you choose not to. Now, the truth is, all right, this is not just about alcohol. That is surface level. This is about identity, about belonging, about boundaries. It's all kind of mixed in there, right? It's about navigating a world that sometimes feels uncomfortable when you grow. And if you are changing a relationship with alcohol, you are growing, you are changing, you are evolving. So it can feel uncomfortable even when that growth is exactly what you either need, or as I would prefer to put it, when it's what you want, right? This is when we get confused. So let me do a little bit of scene setting here and let me paint the picture. You're at a dinner party. Or maybe that sounds a bit 1980s, I know, or 1990s. You're out at dinner with friends, or you're around a friend's house for dinner. How about that? And everybody has a glass and yours is empty on purpose. Now, it might be because you're not drinking the wine, or you just say, actually don't really want to have anything. I actually find these days if I'm not drinking that I really don't have any need for water or any other substitute. Anyway, so your glass is empty. And somebody has clocked, and they've clocked it the moment you sort of came in. Okay, you know they did, right? You clocked that something's different about you. And now they turn that conversation to you, right? It's, oh, come on, just one. You're always the wine girl. You help me keep the party going. I can always rely on you. When I was a bit younger, it might have been, you're not pregnant, are you? So any of my younger listeners, you might have that one. Or maybe there's what I call like the universal standard default other people go to. Don't make me drink alone. You know, as though you're forcing them to drink and you're forcing them to do this thing against their will. Or, and this one I think can be often seen as the most confusing of all, I know you're cutting back, and I think that's really great. And by the way, this is often one that I hear that spouses or partners say, right? I know you're cutting back, and I think that's really great. I'm super supportive of that. But can't you just make one exception tonight for me? And suddenly this whole conversation feels very personal and about the other person and about your relationship, and it all becomes very emotional, right? It becomes like saying no is some kind of rejection, not just of a drink, but of the person in front of you. And you kind of feel, people tell me they feel put upon. I certainly remember this and think, oh, should I just have the drink? Would it to please them because that's what they want? We kind of default to that. And it all makes it all so much harder for us to follow through on what we want to follow through on, because what you're doing is you're not just dealing now with a craving, you're actually dealing with the fear of letting someone down. And quite often somebody whose opinion you care about maybe, or somebody who you value, somebody you love, right? Somebody you are quite happy to do things for. Now, let me put this sort of in real world speak, because I have one of my clients, I need to talk about one of my clients. I'm going to call her Sam. Obviously, a lot of people who work with me, this is a very personal topic. They don't want their names to be known. So I'm going to call her Sam. And she told me, it's like the people in my life need me to drink so that they can feel okay about their drinking. I want you to think about that. And another of my clients said, I used to always have a glass of wine before certain meetings, but now I don't, and it's no big deal, but they still make it weird, right? They being the other people that she meets with, right? Because this was a bit of a tradition. And then finally, I'm going to give you another one. This is one that really always gives me goosebumps every time I think about this, because this is somebody who now has gone from being really concerned about this expectation to drink and used to call herself very much a people pleaser. If you want more info on people pleasing there, I have another episode on that. But now she has, after working with, she has transitioned into basically a new identity of herself. And this is what she told me. I don't want to hide anymore. I want to be present and involved. That really is who I am now. All right, I want you to think about just the depth of that statement, the simplicity and the depth. Now, listen, these are women who weren't trying to quote unquote be sober, right? Remember, I don't go in for labels. They were just trying to be free. They were just trying to be able to back themselves in what they wanted. Because this freedom includes the ability to say no to a drink without feeling like you've let someone down, right? Because we all know it's easy to say no. It's all the emotions and the aftermath that we find difficult. Now, the deeper why this matters, I want to touch on, because this is what I want you to hear, right? In case no one's ever really said this clearly to you in a way that resonates. You don't owe anyone your participation in their story, right? You don't owe anyone your participation in their story. You don't need to abandon yourself or your values or what you want from your life, even in that moment, in order to keep the peace. And you are most certainly not, quote unquote, ruining the vibe or being a buzzkill by choosing what's right for you. And if you know this, but you're still a bit loose on this and it helps you, I'm going to give you permission, if it helps you, to take on and adopt these new thoughts. And I'm going to repeat them. You don't owe anyone your participation in their story, period, or full stop, as we would say in England. You don't need to abandon yourself to keep the peace. You are not ruining the vibe or being a buzzkill by choosing what's right for you. Now listen, when someone says, look, can't you just make one exception tonight, right? Maybe partially you're agreeing with them. There's some big fancy event, or there's some big impromptu celebration, or there's something special that we might say, oh, it doesn't come along the whole time. But if they say, can't you just make one exception tonight? What they're really saying is, look, please don't make me look at my own choices. Please don't change, because then I might have to. There might also be a subtext where people think, my gosh, if they're changing, is she going to want me to change too? And of course, we're not into that. We're not into controlling and changing other people, but that might be what they're thinking. Now, listen, your job is not to protect other people from their discomfort. Even if you wanted to, doing that would be impossible. Your job is to protect yourself from the loop you've been caught in for far too long. And if you are listening to this podcast, then you likely identify with that, right? This loop where you say yes to keep things light and easy and just avoid all the arguments and to avoid the look and to dodge the discussion. And then you wake up wishing you hadn't, right? Because by saying yes to somebody else, you have again said no to yourself. So let's make this real. This is your little bit of, I want you to think about this. Think about how this relates to your life as I talk here. I want you to think of a time recently when this happened. Were you at a partner's work dinner? Was it a girls' night out? Maybe a weekend away with the family? Maybe just a night in with your husband or your wife? And you had the thought, they're expecting me to drink. And I feel like a buzzkill saying no. Right? Or it could be something more subtle. It could be, my gosh, you might be worried to think that this is what we do and I'm going to change this habit. And what are they going to think about that? Right? I just want you to pause right there and think about this. And listen, it's not you. It's not that you are being a buzzkill. It's that your boundaries were brushing up against someone else's expectations. And in that moment, you were making a powerful choice, even if it felt a little shaky. You were making your future self proud. You were the one who wakes up feeling strong, right? That's who you're becoming. You're becoming the person who knows she can trust herself. Honestly, being able to trust yourself is like the greatest gift you could give yourself. When you trust yourself, there is nothing you are not going to be willing to do. This is, by the way, the number one thing that I work on with my clients. And I want you to consider in this scenario, right, where you might be thinking when you're looking back, they were expecting you to drink and feeling like a buzzkill. Who's rewriting that script? Who's writing that script? Right? If you're able to then follow through on what you want, that's you're rewriting the script without shame, without any explanations. We don't need to explain ourselves. We can just decide. So if this is happening to you again and again, if you feel like you're kind of living out some kind of social Groundhog Day where every dinner, every invite, every event, every pop down the pub, every works do at the end of a conference pulls you into this same exhausting loop, right? Where people are expecting you to drink and you kind of cave, especially when they say just this once, or but I bought your favorite bottle, or you're not giving this up forever, right? Or maybe, but this is, this glass of wine, it's your favorite, right? This is your favorite and it cost £11. I want you to know this. You do not have to keep doing this on repeat. You do not have to keep making their comfort your priority. You do not have to feel like the only one carrying that tension, right? Because we can feel like they offload it to us. They say this thing and then it's on us. What do I do? If I don't drink, I'm going to make them unhappy. If I do drink, I'm going to make myself unhappy. While they're sort of blithely going about their lives. Maybe, how about this for a thought? Maybe they don't even expect you to cave. They don't expect you to say yes. It's kind of just part of their default, right? But we're making it all about us. You can step out of this cycle immediately, right? You can rewrite this moment and you do not have to figure it out alone. This is the work I do with my clients every single day. We don't just talk about drinking less. We rebuild the inner foundation that makes it possible. The identity, the self-trust, the emotional tools that let you say yes to yourself without feeling guilty. Now, if this episode made your shoulders drop, if it reminded you that you're not wrong, that maybe this is just the nudge you want, you're just ready. And if you're done explaining yourself or defending your choices or trying to shrink your growth or be someone who you're not, right? Just so other people don't get uncomfortable, then that is a sign. It is time. I want you to book a free discovery call with me today. Let's get you out of this loop and into a version of your life that fits who you are becoming. You do not have to keep living this same experience, this same night, this same moment on repeat. You do not need to smile and just drink up just to smooth things over. You can feel strong, you can feel grounded, and you can feel proud even when others don't get it. We want to allow them to just not get it. It's time to say yes to yourself. If you want that discovery call with me, like I say, it's free. You will find the link in the show notes, or go to 90dayslater.co and there's a book a call button on there. I cannot wait to hear from you. Thank you so much for tuning in today. And if you love this episode, or even if it's simply got under your skin in a good way, please share it. Please pass it on. The more that we pass this on, or if you want to review the podcast, please do so. This makes it more accessible to others. Let's normalize not drinking so much, not needing to drink, or not even needing or wanting to go sober because that's the only solution, right? Let's normalize feeling proud of doing what we want for ourselves. I'll be back next week with some more real talk and truths and support for you in this drink less journey. Until then, I'm in your corner. If this episode hit home and you're ready to explore what life could look like with alcohol in the back seat, let's talk. I work with people one-on-one who are ready to create the relationship with alcohol that works for them, so they feel powerful in their choices and at peace with their habits. Go to 90dayslater.co and click on book a call, or grab one of the free guides in the show notes to this episode. And if this podcast is helping you, a rating or review goes a long way to help others find this work too.